developed in one generation. What is happening in those places? Why is there this silence regarding this religious persecution? Here's a school teacher in Nigeria who details how some of his students were taken by Islamic fundamentalists around this time last year.
They came from the main road like this. They came with different bikes with several ammunitions around 747 on that very 7th March 2024. They came here and arrested the pupils there. We have seen several students running out. They are saying, our teacher, how can you help us? I used to tell them, follow me back. Until the final day, some of them that are spoiling that continue running, and I used to catch their hand, continue running. I wanted to save more, but they gathered the students around these mango trees as they asked them to follow the bush. It's easy to take children. They know that when they take children, it will be touchable a lot to the government within the society. All those things, they are doing it just to get this money from either the parent or the government.
Kidnapping Christian children for ransom. Joining us now to expose the persecution of Christians in Nigeria and the Middle East is Doug Burton, senior editor at Truth Nigeria, and retired Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari, CEO of the Near East Center of Strategic Engagement. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Doug, let's start with you. Kidnappings like the one that we just saw appear to be common in central Nigeria. How many of those victims kidnapped are Christian?
More than half. Definitely, predominantly, the people kidnapped for long periods of time are Christians, Chris.
And where are these people? This is central Nigeria?
It's in many states. In north central Nigeria, there is a crisis, but kidnapping for ransom happens in many states around the northern part of Nigeria. There are 36 states in this country. Kidnapping is a huge business for the mercenary Islamists in Plateau State, Benue State, especially Kaduna State, where our reporters are concentrated, Niger State, Zamfara State. Now, to be fair, they kidnap Muslim people as well. But what the Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa, that's an organization based in the Netherlands, what they've concluded in their quadrennial study published in last year is that the Islamist bandits, who are actually terrorists, they prefer to kidnap Christians because, according to the religious beliefs, it's good to subjugate the infidels and to drive them out of the area.
So this is an Islamic fundamentalist persecution of Christians. Is it safe to say that?
Absolutely. It's certainly, in many areas, the crimes are mercenary and they have material goals. For example, the 30,000 bandits that operate in the northwestern and north central area of the country, they're not well organized. They don't have a central leader. They don't have a central ideology, but they all have leaders who claim they are Islamists. They all make these crimes and torture people and murder people in large numbers, and they say they do it for jihad. They all self-proclaim jihadists, every one of them.
So they themselves make this clear. Now, Colonel Sangari, you're part of the Assyrian Christian community. Your family left Iran in the 1980s after Islamist leaders took over that country in the Islamic Revolution. Explain what happened to your family and to your community.
Well, my community has been devastated pretty much. We've left, of course, after the Islamists took over Iran itself. Actually, my wife's family had to flee Lebanon because of the civil war that waged there, specifically targeting the Christians directly. And actually, my mother-in-law ended up losing her eye because of a attack that took place in the market where she was shopping at. So majority of the Christians in the Middle East are always going to be under the gun. It needs to be understood that most of this leads off of what happened going back even in the siege of Nicaea, which at that time the Ottoman Turks had led that battle. And after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire and the Caliphate fell apart in 29, movement of the Muslim Brotherhood was established in Egypt, which really is a branch that has fed into all the Islamists operating everywhere, even in Africa. Now, people say, how is that even a possibility, especially given the fact that we know that Turkey and also Qatar are really the ones that fund and support logistically this Muslim Brotherhood movement that even is coming back now in Egypt because of the pressure that's been applied to the Egyptian government through financing that comes out of a NATO ally, in this case Turkey. But Turkey is taken the Islamist movement and actually has put it part of its foreign policy, which it applies even in Africa, which is why you're finding even these attacks taking place under the guise, even here in the United States, it is the Muslim Brotherhood financed specifically through Turkey and also Qatari funding that is driving even what is happening in academia and some of our schools here. I know that the President Trump's guidance to the Department of Justice has set up the Joint Task Force, which is looking at October 7th. If they do their work correctly, they'll find out that the money and the dollars that are driving this are really tied to Turkey and also Qatar.
Yeah, and hoping to get into that in a later episode. You shared with some of that with me off camera. It's really quite revealing. Now, Doug, the persecution of Christians in Africa and the Middle East has been going on for decades, but the violence and death are increasing, as Sargis pointed to in Egypt. What explains this?
Well, Chris, it's easy. It's the money. The Islamists started out a few years ago. They were killing Christians. They were massacring them in attacks at night. And in the last year, maybe last 2 years, they've begun focusing upon just kidnapping people, large numbers of people, and they make huge profits. They're making so much money off of kidnapping. I mean, they become billionaires. They become millionaires very quickly. They hire other people. So it is lucrative, frankly, and it's very hard for the government to stop. With the money they gain from poor people, and they force people to sell everything they have, to actually bankrupt themselves and their whole communities in order to get the ransoms up for their relatives. Well, it actually forces people to leave the area. They can no longer farm. They don't have any land anymore. They don't have any tools. They don't have any money to buy fertilizer, etc.
Doug, it's really just jarring and hard to imagine, living in the U.S., at least the way that I grew up. I'm wondering, what is the Nigerian government doing? Are they on the take with this?
The Nigerian government is playing a dual role. Since the new president came in May of 2023, he has promised to put an end to banditry and terrorism, which in Nigeria it's called by the acronym, by the abstraction insecurity, of course. But what it means is it means Islamist violence against Christians. So he has aimed the army and the air force squarely at the large bandit gangs in the northwestern states of Nigeria, and he has the army claims to have big kills of these bandits and leaders every month. In fact, just last month they claimed to kill more than 1,000 bandits and hundreds of these bandit kingpins, and they are also finding hostages and releasing them. But the irony is there are other parts of the country where they seemingly turn a blind eye to it. They don't acknowledge the fact that there's a large compound 35 miles south of Kaduna City that was the holding place for 8 hostages that our Truth Nigeria reporters, they interviewed and filmed on February 25. And these hostages say that they were part of a group of 26 people kidnapped about 40 miles away in Auru County. And they say there are up to 200 hostages still there in that compound, which is only a few kilometers away from a Nigerian military base.
Doug, we just have a minute left. Sargis, I want to hear from you. Why is there this deafening silence regarding the growing persecution of Christians in Nigeria, the Middle East, and frankly around the world?
Well, because information operations, we're pretty bad at information operations. We were bad at it in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you have Islamist groups that are funded, well supported, and they know how to exactly affect even our news media here. If we go back, as I mentioned, Qatar being one of the major funders of operations operations even here with the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. Just going back to one of our conservative outlets, Newsmax, as it was reported on the Hill, last year they received $50 million in 2019 and 2020. If you today you go ask somebody there, and I've done interviews on Newsmax, to go ahead and publish an article showing that funding stream, I guarantee you it will not show itself. So the issue becomes, how well are these foreign powers using this money that are Islamists are able to affect Congress? And
Colonel, I want to
Congress
come back to
do
this
anything
in the
about it.
next section. It's such an important issue. Why these things are not being exposed, why we don't know about them en masse, that is. Colonel Sargis Sangari and Doug Burton, thank you so much for all of this revealing conversation about the persecution of Christians. We're coming right back to you after the break on NTD's International Roundtable.